Everything you know about intelligence is a lie. Learning more? It's making you stupider. To actually get smarter, you must commit a violent act. You have to destroy what you already know. Let me explain. Refuse to do this, and your brain is already obsolete. So, are you already obsolete? Look, the fixed way we've all been taught to grow is a total trap. It's the exact thing keeping you stuck in neutral right now. We spend our entire lives trying to stack brand new facts on top of old, crumbling foundations. But if that foundation is rotten, you aren't building a skyscraper, right? You're building a sinkhole. In this explainer, we are taking a sledgehammer to the matrix of how you learn, tearing it down to the absolute studs. Section 1. The Tyranny of Now. Fixed versus growth mindset. Let's kick things off by looking at two fundamental mindsets that literally dictate our reality. This comes straight from the groundbreaking research of Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck. She exposed a devastating psychological trap she calls the tyranny of now. In her famous experiments, she gave kids a series of puzzles. The kids with a fixed mindset, that's the left side here, they actually picked the easier puzzles just to look smart. They treat intelligence like a static trait, like a hand of cards you're dealt at birth. Your whole life becomes this exhausting game of constantly proving yourself, hiding your flaws, and avoiding struggle because, well, struggling means you aren't naturally gifted. But over on the right, the growth mindset kids were totally bored by the easy puzzles. They begged for the hard ones. They see intelligence as completely malleable. The hand you're dealt is just the starting line. They thrive on cultivating their abilities through struggle. They don't care about looking smart. They just want to get smarter. Now check out the ACC brain activity column right here. This is mind-blowing. This table maps out Jason Moser's hard neuroscience study, looking at the brain's anterior cingulate cortex. That's the part that handles cognitive control. When a student with a fixed mindset makes a mistake, their brain basically flatlines. It's barely active. They neurologically shut down and run away from the error. But look at the growth mindset. When they mess up, their brain is literally on fire. They process the mistake deeply, and their error positivity goes off the charts. What does error positivity actually feel like? It's that sudden rush of clarity when you finally realize exactly why your code broke, or why a recipe tasted awful. You don't feel defeated. You feel totally energized to fix it. They correct the error immediately because their brain uses failure as pure fuel. Section 2. The Power of Yet, Reframing Failure. So the crucial question is, how do we neurologically reframe failure so we can escape that tyranny of now and build a brain that lights up when things get hard? Well, it starts with 3 simple letters, Y-E-T. Carol Dweck looked at a high school in Chicago that did something absolutely radical. They completely banned the failing grade of F. Instead, if a student didn't pass, they got a not yet. Imagine being a teenager, terrified to open your report card, and instead of the crushing, final weight of an F, you just see 2 words. Not yet. Think about the massive psychological relief and the dopamine shift that creates. An F tells you you're a failure, you hit a dead end. But not yet tells your brain you are simply on a learning curve. It illuminates a clear path into the future, instead of handing down a final judgment. Think about how you talk to your kids, your team, or even yourself. We absolutely have to stop praising innate talent. The trap of passive talent is deadly. When you tell someone, wow, you are so naturally smart, you are instantly reinforcing that fixed mindset. Studies actually show that kids praised like this give up significantly faster the second they hit a hard problem. They feel stupid, so they quit to protect their ego. Instead, we have to pivot to process praise. Say something like, you tried some really great strategies, you stayed focused, and you pushed through. Praising the process, the actual grit, the effort, and the perseverance is the ultimate secret to building genuinely resilient minds. Section 3. The Pain of Unlearning, Tearing Down the Old. Here's the harsh truth. A growth mindset isn't just about cramming in new facts, it's about actively destroying old ones. And our brains, they aggressively resist this. We suffer from massive confirmation bias, clinging desperately to what we think we know. This resistance is so deeply wired into us that the legendary physicist Max Planck once said that unlearning usually takes the metaphorical, or sometimes literal, death of the old guard. Science progresses one funeral at a time. Planck noticed that stubborn scientists almost never change their minds when you show them new evidence. The old generation literally has to die off so a new one can take over. Letting go of an old belief system doesn't just feel like changing your mind. Neurologically, it feels like a physical loss. To survive that intense cognitive friction, you've got to adopt what's called the white belt mentality. You have to completely shed the ego of being an expert. Picture a senior executive having to learn a brand new software system from a 22-year-old junior employee. Deeply uncomfortable, right? But a true white belt looks at a subject they already know with the absolute humility to accept that their current, deeply held knowledge could be totally 100% wrong. You have to become a ruthless critic of your own internal biases.
Section 4, the survival cycle. Learn, unlearn, relearn. This brings us to the ultimate framework for continuous intellectual survival in an increasingly chaotic world. Decades ago, futurist Alvin Toffler absolutely nailed the modern landscape with this concept. He said that true modern illiteracy has nothing to do with reading or writing anymore. It's the inability to cycle through 3 distinct phases of mental evolution. Toffler saw the chaos of the information age coming from a mile away. He knew that if you can't violently unlearn outdated concepts, you're functionally illiterate today, regardless of how many degrees you hold.
So here is what that cycle actually looks like. Step 1 is learn. You grasp the theory, apply it, and ideally teach it to someone else to lock it in. But step 2 is where 90% of people crash and burn. Unlearn. Think of it like renovating a house. You don't just slap a gorgeous new kitchen on top of a sinking, rotten foundation, do you? No. You grab a sledgehammer and demolish the bad stuff first. This is that painful process of tossing out what no longer works, using that white belt humility we just talked about. And finally, step 3 is relearn. You're not just starting from scratch here. You are intentionally rebuilding a new, stress-tested knowledge base, using the painful lessons gained from your unlearning phase. Just look at the staggering impact of this cycle out in the wild. The medical field recently had to unlearn and throw out nearly 400 routine clinical practices. 400! New data proved them completely obsolete, meaning doctors actively had to stop doing things they had been trained to do for decades. Or look at the business world. The pandemic forced companies to violently unlearn the myth that strict office control equals productivity, and they had to relearn how to thrive with remote work. Even psychology is currently unlearning its reliance on weird samples, that stands for Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. For decades, psychologists essentially thought they were mapping objective human nature, only to realize they were basically just studying college sophomores. They are actively shedding those biases to relearn actual universal human truths.
Section 5, the Lindy effect. What survives the cycle? So, what actually happens to the frameworks and ideas that survive this brutal, nonstop cycle of unlearning? Well, they trigger something popularized by Nassim Taleb called the Lindy effect. Basically, for non-perishable things like ideas or technologies, their future life expectancy is directly proportional to their current age. Let's make this super simple. If a book has been consistently in print for 50 years, it's a safe bet it'll probably be in print for 50 more. If a new diet fad popped up last week, it's probably going to be gone next week. A brand new idea is highly perishable, but a concept like Stoicism that has survived thousands of years of human unlearning, that is a proven, battle-tested, superior concept. This goes to show that unlearning is the ultimate filter. When you combine Carol Dweck's growth mindset with that ruthless white belt humility, you subject your own brain to the Lindy effect. The ideas left standing after you've violently destroyed your old ways of thinking, those aren't just leftovers. They are your absolute most valuable, enduring assets. They are the actual bedrock of true, lasting intelligence.
So if you want to stop being obsolete, you have to look inward right now. What belief are you defending that is secretly holding you back? What cherished fact in your brain needs to be completely destroyed today? Because to survive, you absolutely must unlearn. Thanks for hanging out with us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.